Tucker, what's happening, man?
Good, man. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on again.
Dude, part 2, man.
I know you were saying I was on a year ago. It feels like 5 years.
Dude, it was
really
it's crazy. That was episode 48. It was May of last year.
Yeah.
Wow.
And how we got connected. I remember, I think I had written a Twitter thread in March, and you were like the huge, you were the big first account that followed Harry and I.
Yeah.
We were like,
Really?
Tucker Mash just followed.
Yeah, dude, this was March of last year.
I was one of the first big accounts to follow you guys.
100%. Because you were into the regenerative stuff.
Yeah,
You
right,
were
of
writing a
course.
lot
Yeah,
about that.
yeah.
And I remember DMing Harry. I was like, holy shit, Tucker just followed us. And for us, it was like, dude, I've read your book since I was 14
You guys were
years
writing
old.
good threads, man, at the time. You guys stopped. What the fuck? You did too big for good Twitter
We got to get back
threads?
into it.
We're coming back.
Dude, there's only like so many things that you can focus on. And I think at first it was like, all right, build the following on Twitter. Then it was the podcast. But we got Twitter is like the core of where this
You
whole
can
thing
do
started.
both.
Yeah,
definitely.
Right. You guys are just like eating too much meat or sleeping with too many girls or something. You got time for Twitter and podcasts.
Too much
I promise.
yeah.
Yeah, right.
There's enough hours in the day.
I have 4 kids and a ranch. So like I got all the excuses in the world. You guys are single, right? Or at least you're not married. You don't have
Not
kids.
married, yeah.
Definitely.
Okay.
No excuses. We're going to get back in 2 threads a week. That's our promise.
There are people eating seed oils and fucking carbs right now that need
That are running laps,
some help.
They need the info.
But I was saying, man, you were the first big account that really followed us. And that was, in a lot of ways, that was our proof of concept of like, holy shit, like the internet, Twitter, the ability to connect with people. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I'm sure you probably had some of those experiences like early 2000s writing Hope They Serve Beer in Hell and starting
My whole life, man. That's
Yeah.
why I am where I am.
Yeah.
It's because I started putting my shit out there.
Yeah.
Your career is interesting too, because I was listening to your podcast with Danny Miranda, and I think this resonates with Brett and I both, where we both had corporate backgrounds and we were kind of in that like soul sucking job, like just the vortex of like, I don't really know if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think so many people are going through that. They're like, they're just not doing what they're supposed to be doing or want to do.
No, if you have a soul, being in a corporation is almost antithetical.
It is.
So,
Yeah. And then you kind of just start writing to your buddies, and they were the ones who pushed you to be like, hey.
Well, I also got fired from my corporate legal job, right, in 2.5 weeks. And then my dad fired me from the family business. So it's funny. A lot of people are like, oh, you had so much courage. I'm like, well, yeah. But before I found my courage, also I had to burn every fucking bridge in my life to the ground. Like, obviously, I didn't want to get fired from being a lawyer, and I didn't want my family to fire me from the family business. But like, that's a lot of young guys look at me and they compare their current selves to my current self, and that's not a tenable comparison, right? I'm 47. I have been in media for 20 years. I've been, it doesn't make any sense with to take yourself in your 20s or even early 30s and look at a dude who's 15 years ahead of you and be like, why aren't we the same? Motherfucker, because I'm 20 years ahead of you. Like, that doesn't make sense, right? And so, like, they don't think about the fact that, I talk about it, but maybe I just don't talk about it enough. They don't look at the fact that, like, my courage was found after I failed at, first off, realized how horrible these things were, and then stayed in them, and then was pushed out. Right. So like, it's kind of easy. It's sort of like, it's why, Julius Caesar burned the bridges on the Rubicon when he took his army across. It's pretty easy to be courageous when you got nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
Right. And so I actually think it's harder to burn your own bridges. Right. Like to say, I don't want to be in this soul sucking job. I am going to make the decision to go do something else. And I'm going to take that leap when I don't have to. That's actually really hard. I didn't do that. Now you can make the argument that unconsciously I forced the law firm to fire me. I acted out like an asshole, which I did. And then I totally did. And you can say, but that's just me being unconscious and unconnected to my emotions and act like that's just, you don't have to be totally fucked up to be courageous, right? I just happened to take that path. It's just who I was. Like I was talking, like when I was on with Danny or you guys, like you guys are, and Danny's a good example of it. Like, so far ahead of where I was at the same age emotionally, right? So you don't have to go through all that struggle and pain. But nonetheless, yes, it is hard to be courageous to when you see so many people just taking, the golden handcuffs or the corporate job or the easy life or whatever. But I'll tell you the thing, man, that's really, I've had to learn this multiple times. I just went through having to learn this again. And every piece of your responsibility you give up to others, you give up, every slice of responsibility you give up will be taken up by a tyrant and used against you, right? Used to control you. Meaning like you're the only one responsible for your own success, your own happiness, your own finding your purpose, doing the things you want in life, right? And if working for a corporation is essentially, and I'm not necessarily shitting on it because like, if you're at that phase in your life where you just need someone to you need to outsource responsibility for a while, it's okay, right? Like I have 4 children. They outsource a lot of responsibility to us. They're children. That's okay, right? And a lot of our culture infantilizes adults for a long time. And so it's okay if you need to, go work for whatever, Facebook for a couple years, right? To kind of realize, oh, this isn't what I want. Maybe save up some money. That's fine. But you eventually always come to the point where you realize, hold on. This company they're taking all this responsibility off my life. But what price am I paying for that? You're free, your sovereignty, not even freedom, your sovereignty. Because you're free to take that job or leave.
Right.
You have freedom, but you are not sovereign. You are not running your own life. Right? You're just not.
Yeah.
And again, I don't mean it judgmentally. I'm not like everyone who works for a corporation is bad. No, they're not bad. They're just at a certain developmental level, right? You guys are at a different level, which is why like I talk to you and hang out with you, hang out with people who are, upstairs working at Facebook or wherever the hell, right?
Right.
Because they're just not at that level yet. I have nothing to say to them. When they get to that level, great. But the point is like, I kind of had to, I created a situation where I had to burn the bridges behind me to do that, right? But you don't have to. Like you guys did it voluntarily. Danny did it voluntarily. There's a ton of people your generation, I think, who watch people like me and are like, oh yeah, they took control of their life. I want to just go do that, which is actually more courageous.
Right.
It's harder to do what you did than what I did.
Yeah.
Is
there a good sense check that you can think of for people who might be sitting at the cube right now thinking like, oh man, like this is not what I'm supposed to be doing? Because I know for myself, I was essentially at the point like where I found the courage was I was sitting there thinking, well, if I got fired, this wouldn't be all that bad. And it's like, okay, dude, you need to make a change. Like that is not, you're not doing something you like if that's your mindset.
It's very simple. It's one of the, almost all the deep, hard things are actually, the deep, difficult, emotional things, they're not hard to know. They're very simple to know. They're just hard to do, right? It's very simple. I think what you just said is it. How, when you wake up and know you have to go into your job, how do you feel about it? It's just connect with yourself. How do I feel about it? Do you have a pit in your stomach, or are you like, all right, cool, I get to go do this? That's it. It's that simple.
Yeah.
If you're hoping that you get fired for not getting the vaccine, you're probably not in the right job.
No, then you're way past.
Which is what happened to both of us. Yeah.
No, I mean, like, okay, like right now, I wake up, my main focus right now, since, I sold out a Scribe a while ago, and my only job right now is my kids. Like, my wife's kind of working on her company. She's an entrepreneur. She's scaling it. It's going great. So her focus is her company and the family. I like take the kids to school, pick them up. We have a housekeeper that helps, but like I'm in charge of the house and I'm in charge of the ranch, right? Like the ranch and the family are my job right now. And like I get up and it's like yesterday, I had to cut wood, move wood, and shovel some mulch. Bro, if I was doing that for a job, I would put a fucking bullet in my brain. But I'm not doing that for a job. No, see, like the actual tasks of that are not exciting to me. They're just not. It is the most base form of manual labor. Why I was excited to do it, I shouldn't say I was excited. Oh boy, I get to chop wood. I was like, okay, cool, this is my day, because I'm doing it on my land for my family and myself to make our lives and our land better. It's like, all right, that is purpose. And that's a purpose I believe in and that motivates me and that I'm excited to do. Like I am not excited to pick up firewood and move it. I'm just not. Yeah. But I am excited to every day make my land and my environment and my family better and safer in real tangible ways, right? Like that's really motivating to me and that's really exciting. And man, now we're a year and a half on the ranch and you guys should come out, man. It's totally different. It's amazing now, man. Now we have 18 months of no chemicals, no pesticides, herbicides, regenerative ranching, rotational stuff, everything. It's like everything's green, abundant. We got gardens, like 40 sheep, chickens, cow. Like it's like amazing. The whole place is, and it's still going, right? Because every day I grow up, even though most of the individual tasks, in fact, I hate the individual tasks because like I'm not a mechanical dude, man. Like I'm a writer. Right? There's a reason why. And every day I have to do mechanical, physical things. And like, you know, like I'm fit, whatever. Like, but like, I didn't know what a planer was or a joiner or like an auger. What the fuck are these? These are what, you know, like blue collar dudes. I have to figure all this every day. Almost every day I get up and I'm like, I'm going to do something today that I'm at best bad at. At worst, I have no idea how to do it. And I'm going to have to learn from YouTube, or I'm going to have to hire a guy to come out and either do it with me or show me. And I'm going to suck at it. Like, I'm going to be bad. Like, I'm not going to, like, I'm going to, honest, like, I wouldn't get hired for this. Dude, I just spent the last week running skid steers and excavators because I'm rebuilding my gun range and I wanted to do it of course I could hire you to do it, but I want to do it myself to learn how to run this machinery. I have never felt like more of a sped than when I was trying to use like a basic, you know, excavator, right? Like a backhoe. It's really, when you're learning it, it's really complicated.
Yeah.
Once you learn it, it's no problem, right?
Yeah.
But like, just see for the first hour or so.
I wish there was live footage of this.
Dude, about 2 hours in, I thought I had so fucked up everything. I was so close to being like, man, I need to call someone who knows what they're doing. I have so fucked everything up. And I kind of had. But then I was like, no, I'm just going to keep going. And then 8 hours later, I was like, oh, wow, I actually did that. Like, someone would hire me to do this if it was an emergency and there was literally no one else there. Like, I'm like, no, but like, I actually can run this thing now at a D- level, right? Which is, I could run at 0 and like the day before, right? Yeah. And so like, even though my days are objectively full of suffering I don't like, there's a lot of meaningful purpose behind it. Whereas like, if you work at Facebook, you're the opposite. Every day is full of basically easy stuff. Each individual task is easy and fun, but doesn't mean shit. Totally. It means nothing to anyone. Not even Facebook half the time, right?
Yeah.
Like, so how do you feel when you wake up about the task in front of you, the job in front of you? It's that simple, man. Now, the reason people make it hard is because they don't want to face the fact that they hate their life. Because if they recognize that to themselves, then they have to make a lot of painful changes and there's a lot of risk and they don't know what's coming. You guys, you know, you were just there a few years ago. Right? You've made it work. But most people, if a dude or a girl are sitting at home listening to this and like, well, that's okay for them, blah, blah, they're afraid they're not going to be able to do it. They're afraid, right? And I get it, man. I get it. Like I'm going to tell you a quick story. In my experience, most people have to suffer enough before they change, right? It's like Will told me, who you guys are going to have Will told me the story. There was a rancher sitting on his porch and I went up and talked to him and he's like, his dog was sitting there whining. I'm like, why is your dog whining? He's like, well, he's sitting on a nail. I'm like, well, why hasn't he moved yet? Or like, if he's sitting on a nail, why doesn't he move? And the guy's like, well, I guess it just don't hurt enough. Right? So it hurt enough for you guys. Most people sitting there, it just doesn't hurt enough. They don't realize the cost of giving up their life for nothing yet, or they're okay with it, or they're not connected with their emotions, or they just haven't suffered enough, you know? When they do, they'll wake up and they'll go do something.
100%.
Or not. Or they'll just double down on that and decide that's who they're going to become. Yeah. And then like, we all know the COVID zombies and the others on, like, we know plenty of those people.
Yeah.
Some people just decide that's who they're going to be, man. They just double down on the bullshit and the lies to themselves, and then they become addicts, or they do, you know, whether it's addicted to Fox News or MSNBC or drugs, or it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They're addicted to something to ignore what their body's screaming at them. You hate this.
Numb the pain.
Yeah. I'm sure you've experienced this when you first started writing. It was interesting. I went back to New York for the first time in a while 2 months ago, and I met with some of my old coworkers and colleagues, and it's like the same shit they were bitching about 3 years ago, like more money, can't stand their boss. They're still complaining about it, and they're always going to complain about it. But it's interesting, like removing yourself out of it. And from my perspective, I'm like, just fucking make a switch. You're telling me this thing that you're passionate about, but you're making up all these reasons why you need to stay in the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's probably what you felt when you were blogging and writing, and these guys were still in these law jobs that they hated, right?
Yeah, they still are.
And they still are.
A lot of them.
20 years later.
Yeah, some are, some aren't. Yeah, dude. One of the things you're going to see, like, I know exactly where you are on your journey, because like what you brought, as you grow and develop, you're going to end up having to leave behind most of the people that were at the last level you were at, right? Like those people, right? I'm sure when you were at that job with them, you were one of them. I'm sure a lot of them were great people. You got to be friends with them, right? But you made the decision to move forward, to move to a better place for you, right? They're either going to make the decision or they're not, man. Yeah. And if they don't, then you guys are just on different paths, and that's just, and you're gonna have to leave them behind, man. I mean, on your journey, right? Like they're on their own journey, right? It's not necessarily good or bad. It's just different, and okay. I mean, same as me, man. Like I looking back on my life, I can definitely see. I can't tell you how many times I've had to. There's at least two. Really, I'm actually on my third time right now of completely turning over my friend group. Like almost every single person.
Dang.
Because like I'll make a huge leap in I mean, think about it, man. I'm 47 now. When I was 27, my entire life revolved around partying, getting drunk, and sleeping with girls. As many girls as I could. That was it, right? Okay. That was my whole life. How many of those friends do you think are still my friends?
Zero.
Probably
like
zero.
I can think of one or two that have gone on a similar path than me. And it's not like anything bad about those people, right? I mean, most of the people who were partying and drinking with me then are not doing the exact same thing. They've grown and changed too, but a lot of them went in totally different directions, right? And they're not bad people, and I don't hate them or anything. They're some of them are great people. They just went on a different path, right? And it's one of the like, so like I turned over all those friends, went to a different phase, got, like business, entrepreneurship. And I'm coming out of that phase now and realizing how fucked up that phase is in a totally different way. It's like things can be way better, but still messed up in totally different ways, right?
Right.
And so the dysfunction of that phase, I'm coming out of myself and I'm realizing, wow, a lot of the people I was friends with and I associated with, not bad, great people, but I'm like, man, like, I'm at a different level of consciousness now. And some of them I've seen have evolved with me and we kind of gone on a path, and all of us are like, what were we doing? Like, why were we? And then you see all like a lot of the same people who are still together, still doing the same stuff. And it's like, my heart breaks for them. It's like, dude, you hate this.
Yeah.
What if you just stopped?
Totally.
But you can't, you're never going to convince someone to do something. They're going to decide on their own. Right. And words are never going to change their mind. Maybe your example might, and you might say something that triggers something in them that they then decide, but you're never going to convince anyone ever. I've learned that lesson the hard way. I cannot, it fucking breaks my own heart to think of how much effort I've put into trying to pull other people forward that weren't ready or willing to go, which is like, that's my own ego. That's bullshit. Like, I'm not blaming them. Like, those stupid people wouldn't come. Why the fuck was I pulling them?
Right.
Like, what? That's, let go, dude. Let them live their own life. And I can think of people who tried to do that for me when I wasn't ready. Like, a good friend of mine he's about 5 years ahead of me on a psychedelic medicine journey. And I can remember long before I ever started that path, he's like, you might want to think about this. I'm like, no. He kind of kept trying. And it was like, no, I wasn't ready. Like, he's right. It was a path I absolutely needed to be on. I had to suffer a lot more before I was ready. So it applies to me too. It's not like I'm some, enlightened demigod and everyone else is stupid and not moving. No.
Right.
Every single great development and emotional advancement I've made, people have told me or recommended or tried to help me do long before I was ready. And I didn't do it. And it's not their fault.
Yeah.
Right.
Or mine. It's just I wasn't ready.
Speaking of evolving, I've told you I wanted to ask you this question for a while. For me personally, I really started to resonate with your content in the year 2014.
Right.
And the reason why I say that is we were both playing college baseball. And so in college baseball, you play in a summer league.
Yeah.
So I was living back at home in New Jersey. I was playing in a league in Jersey. And every game I would travel like an hour, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to the destination. And that's when I first started getting into the Mating Minds podcast, which was there was so much alpha you guys provided in that show, you and Jeff. And I remember thinking, I was like, this is a different Tucker than what I've been reading for the last 7 years. There was like a maturity to you. I even though I didn't know what was going on behind the scenes, I could just tell that you were changing. Yeah. Can we maybe talk about some of those things that were happening around that time period? Maybe that was like level 1 of your evolution.
2014 is like about when I met my wife. But like the narrative people are always like, oh, the bad boy changes for the love of the good. That's not what happened at all. For a good girl, I decided I was ready for a serious relationship with a great woman, and then marriage and kids after that. And then I had to make all the changes first. Before, not every change, but I had to make a lot of changes to even get myself to the place where the woman I wanted to be with would be with me, right? Yeah. And I was in therapy at the time with a therapist here in Austin, and she was so good with this aspect, because I remember at the time, like 2014, I was still pretty like. I still had tons of girls coming to me, to hook up and whatever. And I was like, on one hand, I was like, I want a girlfriend, and blah. But on the other hand, I'm like, hooking up with girls I meet at speaking events, or like girls would email me like, let's hang out. And it's like, there's only one reason they want to hang out. And like, and I was like, still in that lifestyle. I was kind of foot in both lifestyle, right? Which doesn't work. But I was like, silly and playing that game. And it was so funny. I was like, because I kind of tried to date some of these girls, which you can imagine didn't work. And it's not nothing wrong with the girls. It's just, if you're a girl and you're in a party phase, you don't want to date that girl. You might want to marry that girl in 5 years. You don't want to date her when she's in her party phase. Just like you don't want to date me when I was in my party phase, right? So, and like, it didn't really work or whatever. And I was complaining to my therapist about like, I can't meet the types of girls I want to date, and these girls, and she was like, literally like, well, where are you meeting girls? And I was like, it's the girls that like email me to hook up. And she's like, you're shocked that a girl who emails a guy she doesn't know for sex isn't wife material. I'm like, fuck, damn it.
Checkmate.
I got actually mad at her. Because, someone like presents your shit to you and you see how preposterous it is. And you're like, well, fuck you, right? And so I kind of had to, she took me through this whole like sort of path, and she did it so geniusly, where she like kind of like led me through and just asked questions and made me realize. And so I remember too, one time, like she's like, all right, we'll make a list of the things you want your wife to have. Right. And like in middle school, like girls will I want my boyfriend to like, and it's like 500 things and they're preposterous. He has to love Taylor Swift, but not this song. And, my list was like that, dude. It was like a middle school girl list. It was like 100 things long. I remember, I swear to God, it's so bad.
You can't share that.
No. And so I took it to her, and she like kind of read it, and she goes, does this woman exist? And I'm like, what? What does that have to do with anything? Like, I'm a narcissist creating a doll, right? She's like, this is, and so like, she's like, this woman doesn't exist. This is ridiculous. She's like, she wants to have sex, but does MMA, but is super sweet at home and bakes. She's like, what the hell is this? It's like, all right. She's like, how about this? Pick 3 things 3 must-haves and 3 nice to haves, and that's it. And so it took me probably fucking weeks, right? And there, like, I was like, Dr. Frankenstein, like I narrowed it down to like 6 things, right? And so then she's like, okay, this is still like you're describing a really high level woman, like this. I'm like, no, this woman exists. Like, I've met her. Like, she, like I know one's married to a friend of mine. Like, she's like, okay. She goes, so this woman's a badass, and I'm like, goddamn right, my wife's gonna be a badass. And she's like, well, why is she going to want you? I was like, what the fuck are you talking to, bitch? What do you mean, why is she going to want me? I am rich. I'm famous. I'm good enough looking. Like, what girl wouldn't want me? She goes, no, you don't understand. She's like, I'm not insulting you, Tucker. I'm not saying you're not an attractive dude. All I'm saying is this girl has her pick of just about any guy, right? And I'm like, yeah, probably. Well, why is she going to take you as opposed to a guy just as good as you without any of your baggage? And I was like, fuck. I guess like fuck. Like, I was so like, and not just baggage from past, just like your shit now, right? And I was like, and so it was such a good exercise, because it made me realize, like, I was asking for a 10 out of 10 woman, and I was showing up like an 8 out of 10. And not the external stuff, I was a 10 out of 10, but like as an actual boyfriend or a mate, like I had a lot of shit I was fucked up on. I needed to fix, right? And so this is before I started mating, right? And so a big part of therapy for me was realizing where are the parts where I'm really fucked up I show up as a very bad boyfriend. And it's ironically, it wasn't things like cheating. Like not sleeping with lots of girls is easy once you've slept with a ton of girls, you know, like I had no issues with that. It was more things just like trust and intimacy and like a lot of things that a lot of dudes struggle with. And I just had never, after I spent a decade drinking, partying, fucking every party girl I could, I didn't have to work on any of these things, right? So it was like, okay. And so I worked on them. And then it was one of those things where, you know, I don't believe in crazy woo stuff at least at that point. And this is like one of those things where it was like, as soon as I got to the point where I was like ready to meet my wife, bro, I met her like 2 weeks later.
Wow.
It was this
2 weeks.
I mean, it was like right away. It was almost like if I'd met her a month before, I wouldn't have been ready. And then when I met her, it was like right when I was ready, right?
It's like when you see a yellow car.
Right.
Like, you know, you see it everywhere.
Dude, it was the craziest thing. And so then like, and she was at a similar spot, like great woman, ready to meet. And so then, you know, we started dating. I mean, it was like one of those things where like, okay, this is serious. And then a lot of mating grounds grew out of that, right? Is, not just because I was so good at getting girls, and then I was starting to get good at being in a relationship. Right. Which so it's sort of like once you graduate from one level to the next level, then you're able to teach the old level really well.
Yes.
Right. Like you guys right now could probably teach, and you probably do, people who want to go from corporate job to sovereign person. You're probably really good at I'm not that great at teaching that because I'm like 20 years away from that. I'm like, just go fucking do it. Oh, it's hard. Right. I'm too far away.
Yeah.
You guys are only 2, 3, 4 years away from it. So you remember it. So when I was doing mating grounds, I had just come out of my how to be a player, how to be attractive, how to get girls phase, and I'd won it. I'd won it so resolutely. I beat the game. I beat the final boss. Like I beat the credits. I beat everything. And so it was easy for me and I was in the next phase doing well. So it was easy for me to teach the old phase plus understand how the old phase, the problems with it, how to transition to the new phase. And so those podcasts are still up. And I still get hundreds of thousands of views a month on those podcasts.
Wow.
Because dudes find those and I still think they're the best resource by far because they're not, there's nothing in there angry at women. Most of the manosphere, red pill, teach dude stuff is like, it's by awful dudes who hate women.
It's weird.
It's about manipulation. It's so much of it is not all of it, but so much of it is fucked up, toxic shit. And we were coming from, I'm not going to say the healthiest place, but a very healthy place on that scale. It was very much and because the lesson was very simple. If you want to have relationships with women, whether short term, like lots of hookups, or a wife, there are fundamentals to short, medium, or long term. And the fundamentals are you have to be attractive to women. Right. And there are short-term attractiveness and long-term attractiveness are not the exact same thing, but there's a lot of overlap, right? A lot. Yeah. Like being in shape, like being clean, like basics, like that's going to be the same across all. And just because so many dudes grew up with single moms or had fucked up dads or this or that. And no one taught them this. No one taught them any of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that was the goal is let's teach dudes who are completely lost or kind of half lost the fundamentals, right? And dude, I can't tell you how many, I could probably put together a collage of hundreds, if not thousands of emails from guys who are like, thank you so much. This stuff, whether it's the podcast or the book or whatever, changed my life. I have a wife now. I have kids. I met her as I read your book. I did exactly what you said. And now I have a wife and kids. There's so many of those.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
What were those character traits that you had whittled that list down to that brought you from an 8 to a 10?
On me or my wife?
On you. Like what? Oh, I guess so. Those 6 things that you laid out.
Well, that was what I wanted from my wife. Yeah,
but those forced you to change yourself.
Yeah.
So what were those?
Well,
6 things?
So there was the things in her were she had to be smart. Like I needed a really smart wife. She had to be, she had to have her own thing, right? Like I didn't care what it was. Her thing could be a stay-at-home mom, but she has to have a thing. Like she had to, like her thing, and she's good at it. Because like her whole identity couldn't be me or whatever. And then the third was like I had to be really into her, right? Like because at first it was she had to be really hot, but then I started getting into the details of defining hot, and I'm like, I have to think she's really hot. I've got to be really into her, right? Which tends to overlap with a conventional view. I mean, I've got my wife. I've got a 6 foot tall Viking queen as a wife, which, not everyone thinks is hot, but most people do. So, but that's definitely, I have 2 types, and one of them is tall blonde Viking. So I married one. I couldn't marry both types, and my wife's not into that. So
what's the other type?
The other type, no, seriously, it's like Colombian. Like give me a 5'4" Colombian woman with huge fake tits, and I'm jelly, man. Like that, or a Viking queen. And there's almost no, like, they're not close, dude.
The contrast is too good.
Dude, I know. And so, anyway, so, that's, like, that was what I was like. And then I forget, like, the next 3 were like, has to have a high sex drive or compatible. And then there was a couple of other things. Has to be into nutrition and fitness. And then basics, and then there was something else. But like the better question is like, what did I have to change in me, man? Like, I had to realize I had a foot in my old phase, right? So I had to stop fucking lots of random girls, and it wasn't like from a moral position, like that's bad or wrong. Because like if you're gonna be in that phase, cool, then go be in the phase. But if you say you want to be in a girlfriend-wife phase, then sleeping with 5 different girls a week is not going to get you there. Mm-hmm. And it's like the most basic thing. Like you say you want to be in shape, stop eating Doritos. Yeah. But I can have a few back. No, you can't. Like that's not how it works. And it was just like, so it was basic things like that. Like stop sleeping with girls, like randos. Basically only sleep with girls you're in a relationship with. There was like 5 or 6 super basic things that if I tell you like, oh yeah, dude, you didn't know that? No, I was keeping habits from an old life, right? But it doesn't work.
Yeah,
I know that there's some people that say you take on the energy of every person that you've ever slept with, and I'm curious for you, like, do you think that's true? Do you think that's woo-woo, going from someone that's sleeping with multiple girls a week to now being with one incredible woman for the last 7+ years?
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, 2013 I met her.
Wow.
Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna give you. I'll give you the truth, the honest answer. I used to, people said that too, and I'm like, yeah, okay. Like that's, once I take a shower, I've got that girl off of me. I'm not going to tell you what I know because I don't know, or I'm not going to tell you what the truth is because I don't know that. Like I'm not a god. I don't understand I don't think anyone understands how this works fully. I'll tell you what I do understand. About 4.5, 5 years ago, I got really pretty serious into psychedelic medicine. It's been amazing for me, really transformative. I had a couple of sessions, I think mainly with MDMA and one with, I think, MDMA and LSD, where a lot of those sessions, granted, listen, I'm on fucking psychedelics, right? So I'm not going to be like, well, what was happening? I don't know what was happening. All I can tell you is what I felt. And my experience on a few of those sessions was literally cleansing myself of all of those, I don't want to say those girls, because that makes it sound like they're bad people. They're not. I mean, of the energy of those interactions, right? Because I mean, I was sleeping with them too. So whatever judgment there is of them, it's the same of me, right? At the time, and there was a lot of letting go of all of that. Not just my side, because I already changed I've already moved to a different level, but it really felt like there was a lot of shit hanging on, energy hanging on. I don't know whether it was just memories. I don't know what it was. I don't but I do know that was really weird and creepy, and it happened on multiple sessions. I just went down to Costa Rica about 3 months ago and did Iboga, and I had a lot of like really old random stuff come up like that. It kind of, Iboga is like refragging the hard drive, man. It clears everything. Like that is not a thing I would do early in your journey or casually. That's like, that's intense. And so, yes, it appears to me based on my experience that the woo-woo idea that you carry other people's energy with you that you have sex with is very fucking true, man. Yeah. I can't defend it from a, double-blind scientific standpoint, but that was my experience.
Do you think you could have gotten to the point where you're at now where you're letting go and forgiving yourself without the psychedelic intervention?
No, I couldn't. Some people can't. Absolutely. Look, what psychedelics are a tool, right? So think of like, if your goal is to build a house, you can use hammers, you can use screwdrivers, you can use sawzalls. I know all the tools now because I have a fucking workshop, it's so funny. My buddy came over to my place the other day and he was like very mechanical. He goes, dude, when you lived in Austin, you didn't even have a screwdriver in your house. He goes, you have an actual workshop now. Like, he's like, you have most of the right tools. And yeah, I know. So like, you could build a house with a lot of different tools, but if you build a great house, if your goal is to build a house, like, if you were to come over and see my house I built, I wouldn't be like, hey, Brett, look at my hammer. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Show me your house, right? Okay. I look at psychedelics as the same thing. They are a tool you use to do emotional work and to do this sort of growth to get to be the type of person you want to be. You can grow. Think of climbing a mountain. There's 20 paths up the mountain. You can use lots of other tools. You don't have to use psychedelics. Right. For me, psychedelics were very, very important because the type of trauma that I suffered through and the type of life I'd led and whatever, I was very disconnected from my emotions and I was very stuck, and none of the other modalities, yoga wasn't working. Talk therapy worked like some, but there was a limit to it, right? Because you can't talk yourself out of something you didn't talk yourself into. Like, I didn't talk myself into trauma. It wasn't words that traumatized me. It was actions. It was interactions. It was emotions, right? So psychedelics unlocked, it opened an opportunity in me to feel a lot of emotions. They were really important for me, but I know plenty of people who get to where I am or beyond without ever having to use those tools. It's just a tool, is all it is. It's not, you'll meet people like, oh, I do ayahuasca every week and it's like the most, no, they're fucked up. They're stuck. It's like someone who's obsessed with a hammer. The hammer's not the point. Yeah. Like, I guess if you're a hammer salesman, the hammer's the point, right? But like, people who are obsessed with psychedelics have lost the thread. Yeah. It's not about the psychedelics. Like, they're important and they're great, but it is about what psychedelics get you and how they help you transform and help you have the growth you want and the development you want to be the person you want to be. Right? That's why I don't have a fucking stupid flat brimmed hat and my fucking feather and like I love the medicine, the tools, but if you get lost in the tools, it's just another form of distraction.
Well, that was one of the questions that Harry and I had for you, because Austin, I've never seen another city that's so fascinated with the supernatural. And like, now it feels like every gym or sauna session, you see someone in their like mid to late 20s, early 30s that will talk about just going all in on ayahuasca for the first time at like some Costa Rica ceremony. And I'm curious for you, you kind of answered the question, but like, is that helping them or is that really hurting them by going all in like that?
It's a stage of development, right? So I can tell you, for me, first off, so if you go to tuckermax.com, I did like a beginner's guide to psychedelic medicine to try and help people who are because I'm still, I'm only 4 and 5 years in. That's still a beginner, really. Right. In that phase, I tried to I got really lucky. I had some of the best people in the world, the most experienced people in the world, kind of be my mentors through that space because I'm connected to the maps in that world really well, and so I had amazingly wise people who knew me well give me very good guidance. And thankfully, I was smart enough to take their guidance. Because like, if I'd done this in my 20s or 30s, I'm like, what do you know? You've only been doing this 20 years. I would have fucked everything up. But I didn't. And so one of the major things, a lot of people come to me, because I wrote about my experiences early, before a lot of famous people are doing this now. I started before a lot, and I wrote about it early with my real name. And so I tell people, like, ayahuasca is great. I've done ayahuasca multiple times. I have a great shaman who is absolutely world-class. He actually has he can do it legally now. He has a church now. He's a dude in upstate New York who I'm happy to refer people to. I think he's probably the best Westerner shaman in the world. If he's not, there's maybe 3 or 4 or 5 that you can make that argument for. He's one of them. He's amazing. Just an absolute, like spent 20 years with the Shibibo, is also inducted medicine man in another lineage too. Like, he is as good as it gets for a Westerner. There's no one better as a Westerner.
What makes him different?
Because he's spent decades, not just doing his own work, but pouring medicine. Like he is a real shaman. Like a real shaman, like learns from another inducted shaman, like grows up in that lineage, right? Spends literally a decade or more as an apprentice to a real shaman, right? Whereas these fucking idiots like you're talking about who's like done ayahuasca 20 times and think they're shamans, they're not. Those people are dangerous. Do not do ayahuasca with those people. Like the first question I have for anyone, Aya varies, especially Aya and Iboga. Who was your shaman? What lineage do you come from? How long did you apprentice?
Wow.
Right? Because those medicines, those two, ayahuasca and iboga, both come from long shamanic lineages. And if you are not serving those medicines as an apprentice and a member of that lineage, the odds that something can go bad are very high. I mean, like psychic break bad. Those are very, very serious, very dangerous medicines in the wrong hands. In the right hands, they're very safe. They're very good. The guy I use, there's another crew I use for Iboga. I've only done it once. They're great. They're fantastic. They come from the Bwiti tradition, which is like in Africa. There's a couple of Iboga traditions. Yeah. Bwiti is one of the best, if not the best. Shibibo is one of the best, if not the best Aya tradition. So like, I went and found the best people who have the longest lineage, who's trained the most, who have like there's nothing that can happen to me in this that they haven't gone through themselves, seen hundreds of times, and helped people go through hundreds of times, right? Because like, and so that's what you're looking for with those two medicines specifically, because they have those lineages and they are very intense, man. There's no joke. They're dangerous. If you like, there's more than a few examples of people going off cliffs with those, right? In bad ways. Yeah. When someone calls himself a shaman because they've done this 20 or 30 times and they spent 2 months in Peru. Like, no, you're not a shaman. You're not even an apprentice at that level, right? Like that's nonsense. And so, no. I got connected with the right people. What I always tell people who come to me for advice is that the best place to, if you really want to do this, the best place for almost everyone to start is MDMA, right? MDMA is an extremely safe substance. It's extremely well tolerated by the body. Like it's almost impossible to poison on. There's a few contraindications, heart issues that are very easy to like either you have it or you don't. And it's very mild. It's your friend, right? Like I'm not saying it's impossible. It's really hard to have an episode on MDMA that you have trouble coming back from, right? Because it's intense, but it's your friend. I was like say, and also it's the way it's designed and the way it's used it's a great beginner sort of thing. It's like, imagine that your first workout, you went to the CrossFit Games. No, you don't want to do that. That's like taking a bogey. Instead, your first workout, you should go to the CrossFit beginners workout at a local box, right? Yeah. That's MDMA. Right. And so that's the place to start. And there's a lot of guys on MDMA. You can 2, 3, 4 years of good experience doing your own work and working with a guide. You can find good guys who have only 4 or 5 years experience sitting with MDMA, and they're so great. They're so fantastic, right? It's like good Aya shamans. I'm telling you, there might be 5 or 10 Westerners who I think are actual, true good. There might be more now, maybe 20 max. In the world, though, right? Yeah. For everyone else, you got to go to the place. Like they're not going to find a ton. There just aren't a lot, right? Because it takes 5, 6, 7, really 10 years probably before you're a shaman that I'm going to let sit for me. Yeah. Because you're opening your fucking soul to somebody. Right. They basically, and I mean this, a little bit metaphorically, they essentially have root level access to you. Right? So this better be someone you know and trust who's done this a lot, who has proven they can do it, right? I'm not giving root level access to some fucking girl who lives in an apartment 3 blocks away who's done Aya 20 times and spent 2 months in Peru. Fuck off. Yeah. No.
Yet that's what most people in Austin do.
And and there's a reason why this shit's either not working well for them or not working at all. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Because it's like you've got to do it with the right people in the right set and setting. Aya is not a thing I'd be doing it's not the right medicine for most people. Right. It's just not. Right? It's not a bad medicine. It's a beautiful, amazing medicine, but it's like you don't go to college and start a PhD. Aya is a PhD. Like it's serious medicine. For most people, MDMA and mushrooms. Those are the two best places. And for almost everybody, MDMA is the best place to start. There's some people you can make a case mushrooms. Those are the entry medicines. They are both very strong. You can do all of your work on those two. Right. You don't need any of the other ones, right? The other ones might help with certain things, right? But those two medicines are fucking phenomenal. They can get you just about for trauma, they'll get you anywhere you want to go. Like those are the things. They'll work. They work.
So they're all different tools.
Right.
And the end goal for each one is different.
With your end goal. So there's two reasons to do psychedelic medicine, two basic reasons. One is to heal trauma, and the other is to, let's say, enlightenment or growth, right? And you're kind of going to get a little bit of both, right? But for me, I went in with the intention of healing, uncovering, dealing with, and healing my life trauma. Right. And so that's why MDMA is the medicine for that. Right. You're not going to get a ton of enlightenment and a ton of mind expansion on MDMA. It'll happen. Definitely. But it's trauma. Right. The reason a lot of people do Aya is because Aya works. It is a trauma. Like you can heal a lot of stuff on Aya. Don't get me wrong. But it is most people. You have really intense peak experiences. It is absolutely a mind blower in terms of mind expansion. And most people, the reason they kind of get stuck in the Aya loop is they kind of get addicted to that peak experience and the feeling of expanded mind. And it's a lot clearer than on mushrooms, and there's usually a lot less darkness, and it can be very intense and euphoric in a lot of ways. And so it's easy to just keep doing that and chasing that experience and think, well, I'm so enlightened now because I sat with God or I felt the oneness of the universe. And that's cool. That's great. But if you're still a sociopathic asshole, feeling the oneness of the universe, like when you're on Aya, it isn't doing you any fucking good the rest of your life. You know what I'm saying? And whereas you do MDMA the right way, it's a mirror, man. Or mushrooms, right? Like, or LSD especially. That is a fucking mirror. You're gonna have to look at yourself and all your issues. And that shit's hard, man. Most people don't want to they don't want to face their own shit. Who wants to face their shadow and their demons? I didn't want to. I did, right? And I'm doing it because there's really no other path to growth. You can grow a little bit without facing your shit, a little bit. Not really. You know?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, you can grow a little bit with resistance bands and hotel gym weights. You can get it, but you're not getting in real shape.
Totally.
Yeah. Same thing.
Tucker, what's your protocol for psychedelics now, 4 years into your journey?
Yeah. So it depends. Well, I'm in a weird place right now. I'm 4.5, 5 years in. I think I just did Iboga. Like, cause Iboga is like, that's not even the PhD. That's like the PhD exam. Like that's a super intense medicine.
The bar.
Yeah, right. It really is. It's like you're taking the test, right?
Is that ibogaine or is that something?
No, ibogaine is an extract of Iboga. Okay. Iboga is the root. Ibogaine is sort of like I don't want to say lesser. It's a less intense form of Iboga. And ibogaine's great too. It's very intense. It's a little different. So I just did that in Costa Rica with some very good shamans, and I think I'm done with my life trauma. Like, I think I've felt all the stuff that was stuck in me. I felt all the stuff I need to, I faced all that stuff, right? I'm not done with my personal growth or my evolution or like I haven't hit enlightenment or any shit like that, right? Like they're kind of different things, right? Like the more of my darkness and my shadow that I've faced and dealt with, the more I grew. But growing and dealing with your old stuff are not the exact same thing. And I focused on healing trauma. Like, cause I'm of the belief, not everyone agrees with me on this, but a lot of the smart, wise people do. I'm of the belief that there is a limit on your growth until you deal with stuff from the past, right? You can grow a lot, but it's sort of here's your top level growth and here's the shit from your past. Like, it's not getting any further away from this and this. So if you come here, it goes there. If you're here, it's here. They're tied together.
Right.
I'm of the belief that the best way to raise this is to deal with this, to deal with your shit, right? Now you can do both at the same time, right? You can change your habits. You can really work on stuff you do in the moment at the same time you're facing. So the two aren't mutually exclusive. I when I started psychedelic therapy, I thought I dealt with most of my stuff from my past. It turns out I dealt with like 5% of it. Like I knew everything. Like I did 4 years of talk therapy. I was super intense about it. I knew all my issues. I just hadn't felt any of those feelings. I hadn't actually dealt with it. I hadn't felt it. That's what doing the work is feeling the stuck emotions in you. And so the last 4 or 5 years for me has been feeling those emotions. And psychedelic medicine was crucial at the beginning. And then as I did more work, I got more connected to myself. I didn't need the medicine as much. And so like the last year and a half, I've done like 2 or 3 sessions, like 2 MDMA sessions and then iboga. And so I think I'm done with stuff from my past. Now I still have some like negative patterns I got to work on. Like, bro, this morning I got so my fucking dogs dug and got into a cable and chewed it, and it fucked up my gate, and I was like a whole production, and I was late to this first, and I got fucking angry. I was like, fucking dogs, I'm gonna shoot them, and like all this. I didn't shoot them, but like that anger is obviously not a real high level of consciousness. It's not a great pattern. Like I still have plenty of shit to work on, right? But that I understand where the anger comes from. I understand why that pattern developed. I even understand why I go back to it, right? It's like I apologized to my dogs and I was all so it's like I went through but like 2-3 years ago would have been a whole I got to spun out even more. I might have fucking shot him, God forbid. I would have denied I was angry, I wouldn't have even understood, right? And so like that the path for me was deal with my shit. Any growth that happens along the way, great. Now I'm going to kind of turn and really focus on in the moment, focus on like my behavioral patterns, my thought patterns. I mean, I did that, but now it's like, that's the full force of my energy. And honestly, yeah, I'll keep doing psychedelics to some extent, but my use case now is very limited and small, right? Because if you're using them for mind expansion, you don't need a lot and you don't need to do it often. Right? Because you get like, if you're going in for like, man, I've had an LSD session 2-3 years ago that I'm still unpacking. Like these aren't, it's like, you read like a mind-bending 600-page book. You're not just done with it. Like you can read it 10 times, right? So I've had more than enough mind expansion, even so far, where I got years of work to do on that, or just unpacking and integrating like, wow, so I don't do much anymore. Like I don't even know I don't have anything planned for the future. It's something will come up and I'll be like, yeah, like I feel called or I want to do this or that. Because again, psychedelics aren't the point. The point is dealing with my trauma, healing my stuff, and growing. The growth is the point. Being the person I want to be every day with my kids and my wife. Right. That's the point. Right? So I use those tools when I feel like I need them. Just like, like I've got a hammer drill in my workshop. I just used it for the first time in like 8 months. So like when I need it, it's there, right? Yeah. I need the hammer drill sometimes because you got to go into stone and it's the only thing that can do it. But I don't need to go into stone very often. Same thing with psychedelics.
You kind of answered the question I was going to ask, but having that outlet of the ranch, your family, and all these things contrasted with the work that you're doing, do you think you would have made the leaps that you've made without having that ranch to invest your passion into?
This was one of those things. My wife and I always talked about getting on land and raising our family that way. And then the first time I did which was, I forget, January of 21 or something like that. Like one of the first things that came up on my session was the medicine was like, you keep talking about being on land. What are you waiting for? And I was like, I don't know. And it's like, well, stop waiting. I was like, that's a good idea. Yeah, you're right. I'm not going to wait anymore. And I went home and I'm like, what are we waiting for? And she's like, I don't know. I'm like, why don't we just sell our house and go buy a ranch? She's like, okay. And so we did. And oh, dude, like I'm in the middle of writing a new piece, like my next piece for my blog about we're 18 months into having a ranch and how like all this like changes and the executive summary is it's way harder than I thought it would be, and it's way better than I thought it would be. And I thought it was going to be pretty awesome. It's way better, and it's not awesome in the ways I thought it was going to be. Not always, dude. It took me about a year for my nervous system to tone down, like just being in a city, man, and traffic and all that. And Austin's a pretty calm, serene city. But still, it's like you're just amped up and adrenalized at a level, and it becomes your baseline. You don't realize it. And I'm an hour-ish, 45 minutes, an hour out, and we're on where we are is like, off of roads and whatever. And it's like, it took me a year just to kind of get to reestablish a new baseline and then get used to it. Mm-hmm. Like, I can't tell you, mornings I wake up and I don't have shit on my calendar. I have nothing that I have to do. There's always shit to do on a ranch, but nothing I have to do. And it's like, I'm almost angry. I'm like, I don't like, like the lack of punishing stimuli took me a long time to get used to. And I thought I understood that. And I thought I accounted for it. And I had like, it was more intense than what I accounted for. And dude, our kids, man, like they're so much happier. And it's so cool, man. Like they're outside all the time, whenever they want. We have like an idyllic kid, pool and everything, swings and tree houses and all that. And like, they catch snakes and bugs and frogs, and like they just have this amazing life. And it's like, it's so funny. My oldest was like, we had to go and run errands. He's like, I don't like going to the city anymore. And I'm like, who the fuck?
He's like, 50, I don't like he's like 50 years old.
Yeah, I know. Like, which is so funny to hear an 8-year-old say that. But we're so much more connected, and it's like we have real time to stop and like be with each other in like an actual connected. It sounds very woo-woo, and it's really hard to describe. Even because I'm thinking like, how would I have heard this 2 years ago? When I'd done a lot of psychedelic work, pretty advanced emotionally, but lived in Barton Creek. How would I have heard this? And I'm like, yeah, that would have sounded like I would have gotten it, but it would have sounded weird. It is experientially, my life is like 5 or 10 times better on a minute to minute basis, just calmer and content, not happy, content. Like there's just a baseline of calmness and contentment that I don't think I could have in a city, right? It's like, regardless of, maybe if I was like a Buddhist monk, I don't know, but like even then it's like, it just, the energy is so different and it's so calm and it's so, but then also, it's also more intense. Like, I woke up a few weeks ago, and we had like a murdered sheep, and it's like, oh, like you are right there with life and death. There's no fucking around, right? Like, it's like, you live in a city. It's this weird artificial environment where there's like a constant level of low level, or constant buzz of low level stress, but then not the high, like unless you live in certain parts of America, there's, not seeing murder every day. Like, we live with life, and like, if we don't have our Great Pyrenees in with our sheep, they die. The coyotes come kill them. It's only a matter of time, right? And like, chickens, like if they get out of their coop or something, like whatever, raccoons, like we live with like real threats, like rattlesnakes or whatever, and which are not like a huge deal. But there's like, okay, this is a thing you got to pay attention to, because if you're stupid and if you're stupid for too long, like there's real consequences, right? So it's like this weird thing of everything's calm and content, and then there's like, oh fuck, this is an actual real emergency. There's no fucking around, right? This is
totally.
You're not calling like someone for this. Yeah. You got to handle this right now, Yeah. And so it's balancing those two things and understanding that took. And like I talked about earlier, like I wake up every day and like, okay, I have to feel stupid today because I don't know how to do any of this. Now I'm getting to the point where I might be the level of a basic novice intern at a homestead, right? But it's like, fuck, man. Like, imagine waking up every day and not knowing how to do your job, and either having to learn it or knowing you're going to be bad at it,
Especially after being extremely proficient in your old job, selling millions of books, making millions of dollars. You sold the fucking company, and now you're just a beginner every single day. At
stuff that retards do well. Like, idiots do stuff really well that I'm bad at.
Yeah.
Or incompetent at. Yeah.
Dude,
go ahead.
A question I had for you was, I on Danny's show, you described the phase that you're in now as semi-retirement, but you said to him, I think I know what the next thing is that I'm supposed to do, but I feel fucking resistance toward it. Yeah. And I'm wondering, do you feel that resistance because you know that next thing might interrupt the peace and like the flow that you feel out on the ranch with your family?
No, I don't. I have resistance because I'm afraid. Like, we're just going to be honest. The honest truth is, I know the next two things I have to do in a row. I'm the difference between me now and me pre-psychedelics, I would have given you a really sophisticated, great sounding answer about why I wasn't afraid, or bro, like the hard reality is I'm afraid, right? So this is different. I'm not enlightened, right? Because I'm still like, but I have enough. I've dealt with all my shit, so I can actually just own my stuff. The next thing I'm going to do is write my. I don't think maybe I've talked about this somewhere else. I'm not sure. The next project, major project, is I'm going to write my next book, like serious, like memoir, like old school, like I Hope to Serve Beer in Hell. Except it's not going to be about drinking and hooking up. It's going to be how did I go from that guy to this guy, right? Like how did I go from the Tucker Max you guys all know to married, 4 kids on a ranch, like helping, the lambs get born or whatever the fuck.
Starting schools.
Right, starting schools, yeah, right. How did I do that? Like what was that journey like? Which we kind of talked about now, but there's obviously a lot more to it. And so like I'm gonna write that book. And the reason I'm not scared, like I know how to do that all day. It's I think I haven't sat down to write a memoir like that in 2011, 15-ish years. 13, 14 years, right? And I got badass at teaching that.
Yeah.
I haven't done it in a while, right? So it's sort of like, I got to come back out. You know what it feels like, man? It feels like I'm like okay, you guys are baseball guys.
Yeah.
I'm a pitcher who had 100-mile-an-hour fastball, and I just had Tommy John surgery, and I'm coming back now, and I don't know if I'm going to have a fastball anymore, which doesn't mean I can't pitch, right? You can some placement, off speed, breaking stuff, right? But like, I don't know if I have that fastball anymore. That one, the one I had before. I might have a different fastball, but I don't have that one. I know for a fact. I don't. They just reconstructed my arm. I don't have that fastball anymore. I have a different one, and so figuring all that out, like there's just it's just unknown. It's uncertain, right? So it's like there is a fear there, and I'd be a liar to say that there isn't any. So I got to get that done, and then the project after that is just. I think it's like the next phase of my life, and it's the next thing I'm going to build, and it's just big. It's a lot, man, and I think it's doable, but it's like, it's just someone like, someone saying, oh, I'm going to go build, a huge innovative company. It's like, okay, well, that's easy to say, right? I don't even want to talk about what it is because I'm too far out from it, and it would take too long to explain. It would sound stupid probably this far out explaining it, but like, it's just a big thing. And the question is, fuck, man, can I even do that? Can I even pull that off? Now, listen, if I get halfway through of the vision I want, it's still going to be pretty awesome. So it's not like a loss, right? But it's a lot,
But bro, some guys come back from Tommy John throwing way harder. I think that's going to be you.
We'll see, man. We'll see, dude. We'll see. I'm definitely going to step on the mound. I'm a hurler.
We're going to see.
We're going to see.
It's a fun challenge. I mean, it's like, not necessarily reinventing yourself, but accepting kind of where you're at and seeing what you can do with it.
It's true. Tommy John, old school Tommy John. Do you remember Tommy John, the pitcher? You guys aren't old enough.
No, we didn't see him play.
See, it's funny you say that because I'm old enough. He retired like a year or two after I kind of got into baseball, right? So I saw Tommy John pitch. Tommy John was a fucking flamethrower. And he, pulled the ligament. And he was the first, it's called Tommy John surgery because of him, right? And they didn't think it was going to work. And it did work, but he had no fastball. And Tommy John became a badass pitcher for a decade because he was one of the dudes, like he had every off-speed pitch, in the dirt, he had perfect, Greg Maddux level placement, and he could throw like 65 to 85. He could hit any speed and make it break almost anywhere. And if you can, go get some YouTube videos of Tommy John. This dude used to drive dudes insane because of he would fall off, like the way he had to become a totally different pitcher. But you're right, now the tech and the medicine is advanced such that you're right, some dudes will come back and they'll add a mile or two an hour to their fastball off Tommy John.
It's crazy.
It's totally different. You're right.
Getting it before they even tear their UCL.
To improve their fastball.
Because of all the
That's
PT.
True. Yeah.
Dude, there's a guy, the go-to Tommy John guy is Dr. James Andrews.
Yeah, of course, in Alabama.
He does like 10 to 20 a day, just Tommy John surgeries. Like he's got the shit down to a science. Like I know probably 5 to 10 guys that have gone to him and they all came back just the same. or better.
That's funny because in my mind, I'm a different generation. You guys, I'm thinking about the actual Tommy John.
Yeah,
like which is but you're right, man. That is a thing I had not thought about. That my metaphor doesn't have to be the actual Tommy John anymore. Mm-hmm. Like I can actually come back and throw harder. Obviously I understood that as a concept, but through my own metaphor, I had not thought about that. That's actually, I'm glad I did that podcast.
There you go. Just for that one bit.
There you go. You can learn from anybody, dude. Yeah, it's true.
Dude, it has to be a special feeling when you hear guys like us or all these other people that write you emails saying how positive an impact you've actually had on their lives.
You know, what do you guys feel that when you get that stuff? Like, because I'm sure you get emails from people like, man, you've helped me figure this out or that or whatever. You're starting to get them at least.
We're starting to. Yeah.
Okay. Right. How do you feel when you get those?
I felt good. Depends who it's from. Like I get some more ones that are more personal, and it definitely hits home.
Yeah. What about you?
Grateful, but I don't know. Sometimes uncomfortable a little bit. I don't know, like imposter syndrome, maybe. I don't know.
You know, man, it's weird for me, dude. Like if I'm being honest about this, like I like them and I appreciate them. Mm-hmm. And bro, I've had dudes like come up to me like at restaurants and be like literally, like, you see that woman? That's my wife. Our kids are at home or whatever. That's my kid. Like, I read, I eat Beer in Hell, or I read, Mating Grounds, or I listen to me, like, thank you, like, who are like in tears thanking me, right? Like, I have really intense moments, and it's like I believe that I'm super glad I could help them. It's not that I disbelieve it. It's just it's hard. I don't do any of this stuff for them. Mm-hmm. Right. I do it because I love it and I'm glad it helps, right? And I want it to help. But it's like, it's almost like it's hard for me. It's not, I know that they're right because I believe them. It's just like, it's like, you know what? I think the thought in my head is, listen, man, I didn't do any of that. Like, and I've said this to dudes, you did all that.
Yeah.
Like you did the work. Yeah, you listened to my stuff and I helped you, but you did the work. You made the change. You talked to her. You're in the relationship with her. Like, I'm glad my example and some of my information could help you. Mm. But man, like, I don't get credit. You get credit for this. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Goes back to the dog sitting on the nail.
Well, sort of. Because I'll tell you why, man. When I was like at the peak of the early Tucker Max stuff, there were so many dudes who would worship, like really, truly, like nearly religiously worship me, man.
I can't imagine.
And it bothered. At first I loved them. Like, this is so cool. They think I'm a god. But then like if you're a thinker at all and a feeler at all, I realized, oh, wait a minute. They're not worshiping me at all. Because first of all, that's silly, right? Like, why would anyone worship me as a person? That doesn't even make sense. But like, they're worshiping what they envision me to be. And they're putting me on that pedestal so they don't have to face their own fear of doing what they want to do. Mm-hmm. Because if I'm a god to them, then they like, well, I could never do it. They can just tell themselves I could never do what he's doing because he's a god. I'm definitely, there was nothing magic. I got drunk and talked to girls and then had sex with some of them. That was it. There's no magic about that. But like, they were so afraid of whatever they envisioned me to be that they had to put me on that pedestal. And so that like that sort of idolization and objectification was always so hard for me to handle. And I'm not saying every dude who thanks me is objectifying me. There are plenty of dudes who are like, bro, I just learned some shit from you and it really helped and thanks. And like, that's cool. And like, it's super sincere and meaningful and there's no, but like, there's that I think maybe there's still some residue of that for me where it's just like I appreciate it, but like I've had plenty of people who help me. But like at the end of the day, maybe my view is fucked up on myself. But like, bro, I'm the one who stood in the trenches of my life. Mm-hmm. And so like my wife has helped me a lot. Business partners have helped me. Friends have helped. There are people who've stood with me. But those are like my friends. Those are people I know, right? Like I'm trying to think of someone on the drive over. I was talking to a guy that I'm helping write a book. And we're talking about Fight Club, right? Like that book, Fight in the Movie. Mm-hmm. That book was one of the books that really helped me learn to write. And like, if I met Chuck, I'd be like, bro, thank you. I loved your book. Like the book really helped me develop my own style. And I would mean it and it would be sincere. But that motherfucker didn't write any of my shit. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He didn't do one fucking out. And it's no insult to Chuck, man. He's a badass writer and wrote an iconic book. And but like, he didn't, and so I don't know. It's something I struggle with, and it might just be my own stuff. But like, it's not like, I'm glad it helps people. But like, I feel like we're all on our own journeys. And like, bro, if you do some cool shit, you get the credit for it. You did it. Like, you guys did all this shit. I didn't do any of this shit. And it's cool that like my example or whatever was part of what helped you in some way do your own stuff. That's awesome. And I'm glad I could help. But like, I guess the two things aren't contradictory, but my thought is always like, bro, you stood in your trenches of your life. You guys did it, you know? Just like I did it for myself.
It's almost like you're humbly saying, I'm just a tool, but it's all about how you wield it, right?
I mean, we can all be tools for each other, right? Like I literally like the Tommy John comment was actually like, I'm trying not to focus too much on that because I'm gonna go down that rabbit. As soon as I leave, I'm gonna go down that rabbit hole. Like, why was I stuck on thinking about the old school Tommy John when he's totally right? I know he's right. But like, yeah, dude. Like, I not everyone does this, but I think there are a lot of dudes who are people, not just, but it's mainly guys who think, there's some women, but I think they're afraid of their own power. And they're afraid of being everything they can be. It's scary, right? Because what if you don't hit it and all that stuff? And so they it's not just me. Whoever their heroes are, they try and give too much to their heroes so that they don't have to recognize their own stuff, right? I'm not saying you guys do that, because the question was, how do you feel about that, right?
Yes.
Right.
And I think a lot of the people who do that are coming from, not all, but a lot of them are coming from that energy, you know? And that's probably why it triggers me, because if we're being really sincere about it, probably because, like I just talked about, I'm afraid of the next two steps, right? For me, which are going to be major steps, steps of growth, is like, I can see in them, like, they're afraid of whatever the next step is or their power or whatever. And so they're giving me credit that's theirs, right? Not all, but some. The ones that are, right? And so it's probably something I do too, you know?
Yeah.
Although I don't project it out, because I'm never like, there's nobody like, oh, thank you so much, you saved my... No. Like, there are people I'm like, you know, like who help me, but it's just, I can see that of like, no, man, it's you.
Yeah.
Like, you're the dude in your life. You know, does that make sense?
It's
totally
so powerful. I feel like the last 10 minutes was like a really interesting thread that we could probably spend another hour talking about. But I think we're coming up on time here, and just want to make sure.
Your guy had a heart out. Yeah,
right. But look, this was a great conversation. I think people are going to get a ton out of it. Just being able to catalyze some change in their life and do things for themselves. So, Tucker, just really appreciate you coming on.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Anytime,
appreciate you, man.
Yeah,
Thanks,
anytime.
Appreciate you, brother.
Yep.